Hey guys, good to be with you again today. In our passage today, we're looking at what is really the first full parable of Jesus in the book of Mark. And if you're like me, when I was growing up, I kind of wondered, as you read through the Gospels, why does Jesus tell parables in the first place? I mean, if you're launching a revolution or trying to create a movement, trying to build a following, why wouldn't you be clear in your teaching? Don't you want people to understand your message, what you're saying? And of course, as we see in this passage, the answer is both yes and no, and it all depends on the heart of the person who is hearing the message. We've talked about this earlier this week, but Jesus recognizes that a divine conspiracy will be perceived as a threat to those in power. And of course, it is a threat to those in power. The reason Jesus is telling coded stories is because he knows about the death threats that he received in Mark chapter 3, verse 6, and he remembers that he was accused of being in league with Beelzebub, the prince of demons in Mark 3:22. Jesus is speaking in parables because he knows that his life is in danger. Now, we will have an opportunity to dig into the specifics and the meaning of this parable on another occasion, but for now, I want us to notice something about how Jesus starts this particular parable, which I actually think is a kind of overarching thing that we should remember for every parable of Jesus that we come across. So let's focus today on the way Jesus starts verse 3. The first word, and this is important, is listen. Listen. Jesus says to you and me, listen. Now, when I was a little boy during our family devotional times, we would often study various character virtues that we would try to apply them to our lives. And I still remember the definition for the virtue attentiveness. Attentiveness is listening with your ears, eyes, and heart. The parable of the sower is about groups of people who all listened to Jesus' message, and although they all received the same seed, even though they all heard the same message, heard the same words, they responded differently because of differing levels of attentiveness, the condition of their hearts. The condition of the soil in which is their heart made a difference in whether or not the seed grew to maturity. Jesus says in verse 9, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, I think that what Jesus is saying here is that although lots of people listen to him, I guess, or hear him, they're not really paying attention. They're not really being attentive. But what about you? What has God been speaking to you about? Have you been attentive to his message? What are you doing with the seed God has entrusted to you? Remember, the point of this parable is that although all of the soils received the same seed, that is, they all heard the same message, what grew up out of their lives was dependent upon the condition of their hearts and how much they valued the message. If we don't listen to Jesus and put his words into practice, we need to be prepared for Jesus' warning that comes up in Mark 4:25 when he says, whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. I want to leave you with this thought today. As you read through the parables of Jesus, as you read through the Bible, I want you to remember that God wants to communicate to you. But the only way we will ever receive God's message is if we are willing to listen and be attentive. Jesus says to us, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. So are you listening? Are you valuing the words? Are you valuing the seed God has planted in your heart? Are you being attentive to the message of Jesus?